IELTS Listening Module Strategies and Tips, Part 2. And now we are going to review our final section of the listening test, which is section 4 about a talk or lecture. In this section, we are going to review how to classify words or statements. When you're completing the task such as this one, you need to read the categories you have, then read the words quickly. Also, it's very important to determine for you a link between a category and a word before you listen. However, you have to keep in mind that you need to write what the speaker says, not what you think. And also remember that you may use the categories more than one time. So now we are going to review our example from the IELTS test, and the task is asking you to do the following. So, which features are characteristics of which type of wetland? You need to choose a correct letter. So, as you see, we have wetlands and we have ABC, 3 different names. Don't worry if you have no idea the meaning of the words. It doesn't really matter sometimes. And you have the following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, acidic water, grasses, shrubs, mosses, and trees. So, even though sometimes you do not know some words, please do not worry about that. Sometimes you'll be able to understand even without the knowledge of some words. And a lot of times actually in IELTS, your speaker is going to give you a definition, and actually it happens a lot in the reading part too. So what you have to do in this case, whenever you hear acidic water, and then you might hear word swamp many times, so you're going to write down 1B. And then for example, you might hear something like grasses, and then you'll hear bog, so that's going to be 2C. And sometimes some of them can be repeated. For example, acidic water, grass, or shrubs, they all can be swamp. So that's why you can repeat, you can use, some categories over and over again. So, and this is type of task we have in the section 4. And now we are going to review how to complete notes in the section 4. When you are completing this type of task, you need to circle the keywords in the notes provided. Also, you have to make sure you try to guess the focus of the talk or lecture. And remember, the notes are just notes and they are not necessarily sentences. So the ideas can be incomplete, and that's totally normal. They might not include some prepositions, articles, verbs, or other grammatical clues. It's a very important point to keep in mind. Also remember that the notes follow the order of the talk, and if you miss one gap, you just need to jump to the next one and continue listening and completing the gaps. So here we have an example, and you are being asked to write no more than 3 words for each answer. Before you start listening, make sure you are reading the notes you have and you actually understand what the notes are about. So for example, here we have a topic about color blindness. And as you see color blindness, and then you have the following words such as the inability to, and you have to fill out the inability to do what. As you see, in this case, we need a verb. The next sentence we have, the most common form is to and gap color blindness. And as you see, it's describing what kind of color blindness. So you have to listen for the adjective that will be describing the most common form of color blindness. And it's very important to pay attention to the following words we have. So for example, here we have causes, and as you see, we have 3 causes. So you have genes and you have exposure to chemicals. So that means you need to listen carefully to the 3rd cause of color blindness. And now we're going to review our final strategies and tips for the listening section 4. And it's actually our final strategies and tips for the entire listening task. So we're going to review how to complete a flowchart. When you have a task like this one, you have to circle the keywords in the chart and ask yourself what the chart is about and try to complete the chart without listening. Doing so will help you be a careful and a better listener. So make sure you examine your chart and then you circle the keywords and try to understand what kind of information you need to fill it out with. Also for the tips, notice the grammar of the words in the chart. The words you write in the gap should match the grammar of the words. So it means if you have a statement and then you have to fill out the statement with some words, then it means it has to be grammatically correct. Let's take a look at the following example we have. And here you are being asked to write no more than 3 words. So our topic is indirect solar water heater. And you have 3 different statements. Make sure you read them carefully and circle the keywords. So for example, for number 1, we have the antifreeze solution is 1 gap in the solar collector. So the most important words here are antifreeze solution and solar collector. So make sure you are listening for the words like antifreeze solution, and solution can be maybe said differently using different synonyms. But you have to be very careful when you're listening. Maybe you're going to hear a couple of things. So write them down and then go back and try to fill your gaps with the words you caught while listening and see which one grammatically fits in this context. And that's how you're going to complete this type of task. And don't forget, this is one of the most challenging part in the IELTS exam. It's a listening section 4. So always do your best, and if you skip some of the statements and you didn't get information, that's totally fine. Just make sure you don't give up and continue listening carefully. And now we are going to review our final recap for the listening task. As you remember, you'll be given 40 minutes to complete listening task, 30 minutes listening to the recordings, and 10 minutes transferring your answers to your answer sheets. You'll have 40 questions in total, and your section 4 is going to be about a lecture, which is going to last between 3 to 5 minutes, and section 3 is going to be about a conversation between up to 4 people with an educational training context. And remember, you'll hear everything only one time, so you have to be very careful and make sure you take notes and listen carefully and prepare yourself and predict information. Also remember that the notes follows the order of the talk. That means if you miss one gap, you need to move on to the next one. And this is very important that you are listening carefully, and even though you miss some gaps, it's totally fine. Just make sure you are trying to focus again and listen carefully. A lot of times students give up after they miss a couple of gaps, but it doesn't mean you are going to score badly. So make sure you are continuing listening and you are trying to refocus your attention.